The 8-year-old boy had been unconscious for 3 days when he suddenly opened his eyes and whispered one name: Muhammad Ali. The doctors said it was impossible. The child had never mentioned boxing before. But what happened when Ali walked into that hospital room left everyone in tears and changed medical history forever. It was March 15, 1977, and St. Mary's Children's Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky, was dealing with one of the most heartbreaking cases they'd ever seen. 1. Tommy Richardson, an 8-year-old boy from a small farming town outside the city, had been brought in with acute leukemia that had progressed faster than anyone thought possible. The doctors had done everything they could, but the cancer was winning. Tommy's parents, Bill and Sarah Richardson, were simple people. Bill worked at a grain elevator. Sarah was a school cafeteria worker. They'd never had much money, but they'd given their son all the love in the world. Now they were watching helplessly as that world crumbled around them. He'd been such a happy kid, Sarah would later remember. Always laughing, always running around the farm, chasing our old dog Rusty. Then one day, he just couldn't get out of bed. Said his bones hurt. We thought it was growing pains. The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Advanced stage. The oncologist, Dr. Patricia Wells, had delivered this news to families before. But it never got easier. "I'm sorry," Dr. Wells had told the Richardsons 3 weeks earlier. "We'll do everything we can. But you need to understand how serious this is. Tommy is very, very sick." The chemotherapy had been brutal. Tommy, who had weighed 65 pounds when he was admitted, was down to 45 pounds. His thick brown hair had fallen out completely. His skin had taken on a grayish pallor that made him look like a ghost of his former self. But the worst part wasn't the physical deterioration. It was watching their son's spirit die before their eyes. Tommy had stopped talking, stopped eating, stopped responding to anything or anyone. He just lay in his hospital bed, staring at the ceiling with vacant eyes. "It was like he'd already given up," Bill Richardson said. "Like he'd decided he was done fighting." On March 15th, Tommy had been unconscious for 72 hours straight. The doctors had told his parents to prepare for the worst. His vital signs were failing. His breathing was shallow and labored. The end was coming, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Dr. Wells was making her evening rounds when she heard Sarah Richardson scream from room 237. "Doctor! Doctor, come quick! He's awake!" Dr. Wells ran down the hallway and burst into the room. Tommy Richardson was sitting up in bed for the first time in days, his eyes wide open and alert. "Tommy?" Dr. Wells said, approaching the bed carefully. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Tommy looked at her with the clearest eyes she'd seen from him in weeks. Then he spoke, his voice weak but determined. "I want to see Muhammad Ali." Dr. Wells was stunned. In all the weeks Tommy had been in the hospital, he'd never mentioned sports, never mentioned boxing, never mentioned Muhammad Ali. His parents confirmed that he'd never shown any interest in boxing at all. "Honey," Sarah Richardson said, taking her son's hand, "why do you want to see Muhammad Ali?" Tommy's answer sent chills down everyone's spine. "He came to see me while I was sleeping. He told me I had to wake up because he was coming to visit me for real. He said I had to be strong like him." The adults in the room exchanged glances. Tommy had been unconscious. There was no way he could have seen Muhammad Ali or anyone else. "Tommy," Dr. Wells said gently, "you've been sleeping for 3 days. You were dreaming." "No," Tommy said firmly. "He was here. He's coming back. He promised." Bill Richardson pulled Dr. Wells aside. "Doctor, is this normal? The hallucinations?" "Sometimes patients near the end have vivid dreams or visions," Dr. Wells explained. "It's not uncommon, but the fact that he's awake and alert right now is unusual. His vital signs have actually improved in the last hour." What Dr. Wells didn't tell the Richardsons was that Tommy's improvement was more than unusual. It was medically inexplicable. His white blood cell count, which had been critically low that morning, had somehow stabilized. His fever had broken. His breathing had returned to normal. Sarah Richardson was a woman of simple faith. That night, she did something she hadn't done since she was a little girl. She got down on her knees beside Tommy's hospital bed and prayed. "Lord," she whispered, "if my boy wants to see Muhammad Ali, please find a way to make it happen. I don't know how, but please. He's all we got." What Sarah didn't know was that, at that exact moment, Muhammad Ali was 15 miles away at his mother's house in Louisville's West End, having dinner with his family. He was in town for a few days between training camps, enjoying some home cooking and quality time with his parents. The phone rang at 9:47 p.m. Ali's mother, Odessa, answered it. "Hello? Mrs. Clay? This is Dr. Patricia Wells at St. Mary's Children's Hospital. I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I have an unusual request." Odessa called Ali to the phone. Dr. Wells explained the situation as best she could. A dying boy who'd never shown interest in boxing had woken up asking specifically for Muhammad Ali. The family couldn't afford to travel, had no connections, no way to make it happen. But the boy was convinced Ali was coming to see him. "Doctor," Ali said, his voice growing serious. "What's the boy's name?" "Tommy Richardson. He's 8 years old." "And you said he's dying?" "Yes. I'm sorry, but yes, we don't expect him to live through the weekend." Ali was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised Dr. Wells. "What room is he in?" "Room 237. But Mr. Ali, visiting hours are over and—" "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Dr. Wells tried to explain the hospital's policies, the security procedures, the fact that it was nearly 10 p.m., but Ali had already hung up. 28 minutes later, Muhammad Ali walked through the front doors of St. Mary's Children's Hospital. He was wearing a simple brown suit and carrying a small bag. The night security guard, an older black man named James Washington, nearly fell out of his chair. "Muhammad Ali, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to see a patient, Tommy Richardson, room 237. Sir, visiting hours ended at 8 p.m. I can't—" Ali looked at James Washington with an expression that was both gentle and determined. "Brother, there's a little boy upstairs who's dying, and he asked to see me. Now, you can call the police, you can call security, you can call whoever you want, but I'm going to room 237 to see that boy. The question is whether you're going to help me or get in my way." James Washington had been working security for 15 years. He'd seen celebrities, politicians, all kinds of important people try to bend the rules. But something in Ali's voice told him this was different. "Room 237 is on the 3rd floor, Washington said quietly. "Elevators are around the corner." When the elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, Dr. Wells was waiting. She'd been pacing the hallway for 20 minutes, trying to figure out how to handle this situation. "Mr. Ali, I can't thank you enough for coming, but I need you to understand—" "Doctor," Ali interrupted gently, "where's the boy?" Dr. Wells led him down the hallway. As they walked, she tried to prepare him for what he was about to see. "Tommy is very sick. He's lost a lot of weight, lost his hair from chemotherapy. He might not look like what you're expecting." Doctor, I've seen sick children before. I've been in hospitals before. I know what cancer does to kids." They stopped outside room 237. Through the small window in the door, Allie could see a tiny figure in the bed, and two adults sitting in chairs beside him. His parents are Bill and Sarah Richardson. They're good people, but they're scared, and they're exhausted. Allie nodded. "What's the boy's prognosis?" Dr. Wells hesitated. "Honestly, we don't expect him to make it through the weekend. The cancer is too advanced. We're just trying to keep him comfortable." "But he woke up today?" "Yes, and that's the strange part. His vital signs improved dramatically this afternoon. We can't explain it." Allie smiled slightly. "Maybe you don't need to explain it." Dr. Wells knocked softly on the door and entered the room. Bill and Sarah Richardson looked up, their faces showing the exhaustion of weeks of worry and sleepless nights. "Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, I have someone here who wants to meet Tommy." Muhammad Ali stepped into the room, and Sarah Richardson gasped. Bill Richardson stood up so quickly he knocked over his coffee cup. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "You actually came." But it was Tommy's reaction that stopped everyone cold. The little boy, who had been lying flat on his back staring at the ceiling, suddenly turned his head toward Ali and smiled. It was the first time he'd smiled in weeks. "I told them you were coming," Tommy said, his voice weak but clear. "They didn't believe me." Ali approached the bed slowly, his eyes never leaving Tommy's face. When he reached the bedside, he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He got down on one knee, so he was at eye level with the boy. "Hey there, champ," Ali said softly. "I'm Muhammad Ali." "I know who you are," Tommy said. "You're the greatest." "No, little man, you're the greatest. You know why?" Tommy shook his head. "Because you're fighting the toughest opponent anyone could ever face. And you're still here. You're still fighting. That makes you the bravest person I've ever met." Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "But I'm not winning. The doctors say the cancer is winning." Ali took Tommy's small hand in his much larger ones. "Let me tell you something about fighting, champ. Sometimes you get knocked down. Sometimes you get hurt real bad. Sometimes it looks like you can't possibly win. But the fight isn't over until you decide it's over." "But I'm tired," Tommy whispered. "I hurt all the time, and I'm scared." "It's okay to be scared," Ali said. "You know what? I get scared too. Before every big fight, I get scared. But being scared doesn't make you weak. Being scared and fighting anyway, that's what makes you strong." Ali reached into the bag he'd brought and pulled out a pair of boxing gloves. They were small, child-sized gloves that he'd had custom-made years earlier for hospital visits. "These are special gloves, Tommy. They're not for hitting people. They're for fighting cancer. You want to try them on?" Tommy nodded eagerly. Ali helped him put on the gloves, and despite his weakened condition, Tommy managed to sit up in bed. "Now, I want you to throw a punch at that cancer," Ali said. "Show it who's boss." Tommy threw a weak punch into the air. "Like that?" "That's good, but I think you can do better. Let me hear you say, 'I'm Tommy Richardson, and I'm a fighter.'" "I'm Tommy Richardson, and I'm a fighter," Tommy said, his voice growing stronger. "Louder. I'm Tommy Richardson, and I'm a fighter." "One more time. I'm Tommy Richardson, and I'm a fighter." The entire children's ward could hear Tommy's voice echoing down the hallway. Nurses stopped what they were doing. Other patients and their families came to their doorways to see what was happening. Sarah Richardson was crying openly. Bill Richardson had his hand over his mouth. trying to control his emotions. Dr. Wells was writing furiously in her notepad, documenting everything she was witnessing. Allie spent the next 2 hours with Tommy. They talked about everything and nothing. Allie told him stories about his fights, his travels around the world, his childhood in Louisville. Tommy told Allie about his farm, his dog Rusty, his dreams of becoming a veterinarian someday. "You know what, Tommy," Allie said as the evening wound down, "I think you're going to make a great veterinarian. Animals need doctors who understand what it's like to fight for your life." "You really think I can do it?" Tommy asked. "I know you can do it, but first, you got to beat this cancer, and I'm going to help you." Allie reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pendant. It was a gold medallion with an inscription that read, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." "This is my lucky charm," Allie said, placing it around Tommy's neck. "I've worn it in every fight since 1964. Now I want you to wear it in your fight." "But what if you need it for your next fight?" Allie smiled. "I think you need it more than I do right now." Before he left, Allie made a promise that would change everything. "Tommy, I want you to make me a promise. Promise me you'll keep fighting. Promise me you won't give up, because I'm going to come back and see you. And when I do, I want to hear about how you beat this thing." "I promise," Tommy said solemnly. Allie hugged the boy gently, careful not to hurt his fragile body. As he stood to leave, Tommy called out to him. "Mohammed?" "Yes, champ? Thank you for coming to see me in my dream. It made me want to wake up." Allie stopped in his tracks. He hadn't told anyone about the dream he'd had 3 nights earlier. The dream where he'd seen a little boy in a hospital bed calling out for help. The dream that had been so vivid, so real, that he'd woken up in a cold sweat. "You're welcome, Tommy," Allie said quietly. "Sweet dreams." What happened over the next few weeks defied every medical explanation Dr. Wells could offer. Tommy's condition began to improve dramatically. His white blood cell count started climbing. His appetite returned. His energy levels increased day by day. "It's like his body just decided to start fighting back," Dr. Wells told Tommy's parents. "I've never seen anything like it." Tommy wore Allie's pendant every day. He did his boxing exercises every morning, throwing punches at his cancer and declaring himself a fighter. The nurses started calling him Champ, and soon the entire hospital staff knew his story. 3 weeks after Allie's visit, Tommy was strong enough to walk around the ward. He started visiting other sick children, telling them about Muhammad Ali and teaching them his fighting exercises. "If I can fight cancer," Tommy would tell them, "you can fight whatever you're fighting too." 6 weeks after Ali's visit, Tommy's cancer went into complete remission. Dr. Wells ran the tests 3 times because she couldn't believe the results. "It's medically impossible," she told her colleagues. The cancer was too advanced. This doesn't happen. But it had happened. Tommy Richardson, who had been given 48 hours to live, was cancer-free. Muhammad Ali kept his promise to visit Tommy again. When he returned to the hospital 2 months later, he found Tommy in the children's playroom, teaching other kids how to fight like a champion. "Hey there, champ," Ali said, walking into the playroom. Tommy ran to him and hugged him around the waist. "Muhammad, I beat it! I beat the cancer!" "I knew you would," Ali said, lifting Tommy up. "I never doubted it for a second." "Want to see my latest test results?" Tommy asked excitedly. "Dr. Wells says I'm the healthiest kid she's ever seen." Ali spent another afternoon with Tommy, this time not in a hospital room, but in the playroom surrounded by other children who looked at both of them with wonder and admiration. Before he left, Ali pulled Tommy aside. "Tommy, I want you to keep that pendant. It brought you luck, and now it's yours. It's yours forever. Are you sure? I'm sure. But I want you to promise me something else. What? I want you to remember this feeling. The feeling of being strong, of being a fighter, of never giving up. And someday, when you meet someone who's scared and sick and needs help, I want you to help them the way we helped each other. I promise, Tommy said seriously. Tommy Richardson kept that promise. He grew up to become Dr. Thomas Richardson, a pediatric oncologist at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. He specialized in treating children with leukemia, and he never started treating a new patient without telling them the story of Muhammad Ali and the power of believing in yourself. In his office, Dr. Richardson kept two things on his desk: a photo of himself as a sick 8-year-old with Muhammad Ali, and the gold pendant that Ali had given him that night in 1977. Every child I treat gets to hold this pendant, Dr. Richardson would tell people. I tell them the same thing Muhammad Ali told me. You're not fighting alone, and you're stronger than you think. Over the course of his 30-year career, Dr. Richardson treated over 2,000 children with cancer. His survival rates were among the highest in the country, and his colleagues often asked him about his methods. It's not just medicine, he would say. It's about giving kids a reason to fight. It's about making them believe they're champions. When Muhammad Ali passed away in 2016, Dr. Richardson was one of the speakers at his memorial service. He told the story of that night in 1977, and he ended his speech with these words: Muhammad Ali saved my life, but not in the way you might think. He didn't cure my cancer. The doctors and the medicine did that. What Ali did was give me back my will to fight. He made me believe that I was worth fighting for. He turned a scared, dying little boy into a champion. And then he taught me that being a champion isn't about winning fights. It's about helping other people win their fights. Every child I've treated, every family I've helped, every life that's been saved. That's Muhammad Ali's legacy continuing through me. Dr. Richardson still wears Ali's pendant every day. He's 55 years old now, with children and grandchildren of his own. And every morning when he puts on that pendant, he remembers the promise he made to a great man who took the time to visit a dying boy and teach him how to live. The miracle in room 237 wasn't just that Tommy Richardson survived cancer. The miracle was that Muhammad Ali's visit created a ripple effect that has saved thousands of lives over the decades. Because sometimes, all it takes to change the world is one person who cares enough to show up when someone needs them most. Today, there's a wing of St. Mary's Children's Hospital named after Muhammad Ali, and in the lobby, there's a statue of Ali kneeling beside a hospital bed with a plaque that reads, "The greatest victory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And sometimes we rise because someone believes we can." If this story moved you, remember that you have the power to be someone's Muhammad Ali. You have the power to show up, to care, to help someone believe they can fight whatever battle they're facing. Because in the end, that's what true greatness looks like. Not the fights you win for yourself, but the fights you help others win for themselves.